All right, guys, welcome back to the She Can Share podcast. My name is Melissa Hughes, your podcast host. It is, as I'm recording this episode, 1 week away from Christmas. And I have to say, it is finally snowing here in Michigan. We've had a very warm winter. I'm actually grateful for it because I'm not a big snow person. But it's really nice looking outside, seeing the snow and having a cup of coffee and coming on here to chat to you guys. And I just have to say, somebody said this recently and I was like, gosh, that's so good. They said, we are not entitled to anything, but we can create anything. And I thought, gosh, that's so good. And I look back at the last couple of years and I remember feeling so stuck, and I know people say that that's almost kind of become a phrase, but so stuck in wanting to create a life that I'm really excited about. I'm excited, being excited about your life, excited about what you're doing, excited about what God's doing. And I was feeling stuck because I wasn't feeling excited. I was working in childcare. A lot of you know my story, but I was working in childcare, with big hopes and big dreams of doing something, right? I didn't really know what it was, but doing something that felt I was excited about. And it's so crazy how God ended up speaking to me about posting videos online, posted that video. That video the next day got 22 million views and I ended up on the Kelly Clarkson show. And from that point, I really started just figuring out and learning content creation. And what's wild about all of that is it's helped me to create other things in my life. So I create content, I'm a content creator, but also I'm learning and understanding that I can create not just a career, but I can create a life that I love. And that was really the goal for me, was I wanted to create a life that I was excited about and that I loved. And it's really brought this holistic perspective to me about that we're not entitled to anything. We don't really deserve anything. If you know anything about the gospel, you know that we don't deserve really anything. God in his mercy gave us this gift of salvation, which is, totally the Christmas story right now. But we can create anything. We can create anything that we want with our God-given gifts, talents, and abilities. And one of the things that I want to talk about today on the podcast is really creating and understanding your personal brand and how that also can create the life that you want to live, right? And when I look at creating your personal brand, first of all, I feel like there needs to be a little bit of education, especially for the Christian community, because I've heard people be like, we're not here to create our own platform. We're not here to create our own personal brand. We're here to glorify Jesus. And here's what I'll say to that. 1000% we're here to glorify Jesus. But guess what? Jesus died, rose again, gave us the Holy Spirit, went and ascended, sits down in heaven, and he's like, go and make disciples of all nations. And how do we make disciples? Well, discipleship is teaching. Discipleship is, right, helping somebody be a follower of Christ. But how can we help people be disciples of Jesus in obviously the word and the ministry and everything like that, but also in our everyday life? What are you called to disciple people in? What are you called to teach people? And personal branding is essentially the digitization of your reputation. And what's your reputation? It's what you stand for. It's your values. It's your beliefs. It's what you know. It's your values. And so coming back to this business perspective of having the thoughtfulness and the intention to build your personal brand, especially if you're in business, it's really about understanding who you are and your reputation and helping make disciples of people through your business. We have a kingdom business. And so how can you build your personal brand? That is number one. I'm going to give you 3 steps. Number one, it is by understanding who you are. Who you are. You have to identify the desires of your heart. You have to identify your values. You have to identify your gifts. You have to identify your dreams. It's really the first step to building your personal brand, to be able to be a light for Christ and in the world, is understanding who you are. And I found that so many people really kind of do this at a very surfacey level. They maybe have an idea for a business or for wanting to get a message out there or create content, and they just start doing it. Or they get stuck in procrastination and perfectionism and they just sit on it, but they don't do anything. If you're one of the two, I want to kind of bring you to the middle, which is taking action, but being thoughtful about it. And that is where you can do a deep dive in understanding who you are, your why. And, when I think about this, I think about understanding ourselves from the perspective of how heaven sees us, the way that God sees us. And I think I've told you guys this story about how I used to think of myself a certain way until God spoke to me and told me that I was his ferocious babe. But it took years and years of really understanding more of like the things that I'm called to do, the gifts that God's put inside of me, understanding my uniqueness and being able to not be insecure about it, but actually celebrate it. And in that process, I have started to really understand better who I am and how I can serve people. Because until you understand more of who you are, you can't really serve people. You can only give people what you got. And if you don't know what you got, how are you going to serve them? So if you were like, I guess I'm not clear on my personal brand. I guess I don't really know how I can serve people. Well, let me ask you this question. Number one, what are some things that you love to do? Make a list. 50 things that you love to do. Why is this important? Because when you think about the things that you love to do, it's usually stuff that you're good at. And a lot of people have a hard time writing down 50 things that they're good at. So I'm just going to tell you, write down 50 things that you love to do. It could be hobbies, but you're going to find your interests in there as well. When I did this, one of the things that I said I love to do is I love writing. I love talking. I love communicating with people. And ta-da, look at what I'm doing. I'm talking, I'm writing, I'm creating, and it's something that I love to do. And I believe that it's something that I'm called to do. So make a list of 50 things that you love to do. Another question to ask yourself. And somebody asked me this question, and it was such a game changer. They said, Melissa, if you were to look at the world and think, not on my watch, what would it be? And I immediately said, I almost regurgitated it from this deep place in my heart. I immediately said, to eliminate shyness and activate courage. And I don't even know where that came from. But when I thought about it, I was like, wow, shyness is really rooted in fear, timidity, insecurity. And courage is essentially possibly feeling those things, but moving into it anyway. And when I think about, anything that I've ever done or accomplished or how God has helped me, I've oftentimes felt nervous, afraid, or shy, but decided to just do it anyway. And I think that it's really helped me live a fuller, happier life because I've been able to say yes to the Lord, right? And so anyway, I love that question. I feel like that's a great question to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out who you are. The next question that you need to know when you are trying to get clarity on your personal brand, that is, drumroll please, it's who are you called to serve? Who are you called to reach? And a great way to figure that out is to look at yourself a couple years ago. Usually there's a point of transformation and we best serve the younger version of ourselves because we know them so well and we have such a heart for them. We're like, yeah, 19-year-old Melissa, bless her, bless that girl. She needed help, right? But I understand her. I understand what's in her head. And I've obviously overcome because here I am today. So a lot of people are like, I don't know who to serve. I don't know who to help. Look at your story. Look at what you've come through. Look at who you were. What were you struggling with? Because a lot of times we are serving a past version of ourselves. So know your story. Another thing, understanding who you're called to serve, is when you're looking at who you are and what you're good at, how can those gifts and the things that you're good at meet the needs of people who aren't good at that, right? So when I think about people, like for instance, that question, helping people overcome shyness and activate courage, who are those people? Well, they're people that are probably stuck in perfectionism. They're people that feel afraid. They're people that probably feel a little cautious to step out. Well, I am good at that. So I'm probably going to be speaking to an audience of people who struggle with those things. So that right there is like, okay, even if you're trying to get clarity on it, it's like, write that down, write it down, write it down, write it down. Because the more that you write it down, make it clear, talk about it, the more that you're going to get clarity. I know some people are like, well, I just feel called to serve women. I'm like, okay, well, what kind of women do you mean like, ambitious, high achieving women? Are you talking women who have gone through sexual abuse? Are you talking about women who have a child that struggles with autism? Like, what's this woman? What's her lifestyle like? And I know people are, make an avatar and make it, blah, blah, blah. I'm not, really hear me on this. You can't just like make an avatar and do the thing because it's what you're supposed to do. I want you to really think about like you and then the lifestyle of the person that you would need to help. Do you see how they're connected? Do you see how you can't do one without the other? And really like intentionally thinking about it, not just creating an avatar because that's what you're supposed to do to have a successful business. It's like, no, okay, these are the things that I'm good at. These are the things that I could help somebody. Now, who is it? And what's their lifestyle like? And write it down. The third thing, my friends, is once you understand more about who you are, who you're called to serve, the third step is market research. Market research is essentially, for social media, people that are listening here, I'm a social media lady. You basically go on social media, go on Instagram, go on TikTok, go on Facebook, and you type in the search bar the very thing that you want to do, right? So if you want to be a speaker to moms with autism, then you would type in moms who have a child with autism and look at the content that people are making about it. Look at what people are saying in the comments. Look at what's doing well. Look what videos aren't doing well. Look what's performing well. And it's going to give you an idea of what's out there. Now, on this stage, it's very important that you do not copy people, because we're not here to be a copy. We're here to be an original. But you can use their content to understand more about the industry and to get ideas and inspiration from them. This has been such a game changer for me. I know that for myself, I had a video that did incredibly well. A children's book was made from it because I went on and saw a woman talking about her mom, and she did like a montage or a monologue talking about what she would say to her mom if her mom was still alive. And so I walked away from that and was like, gosh, that was so moving. And I made a video that was essentially like a message to my children that I'd want them to know my heart if ever I died. Kind of sad, kind of bleak, but that's what I did. And that video got turned into a children's book. It's gone viral several times, and it's because I was inspired and I did some research. So look at what's happening in your industry and get information, get ideas, look at their buying habits, look at what's working, what's not, and do your research. Those are 3 steps to helping you get clarity on your personal brand. And I actually spent some time this weekend creating a document, a little workbook that goes into this a little bit more. It's 3 steps to getting clarity on your personal brand. And I'll put the link below. And I just feel like it's a good little workbook to help people kind of do a deeper dive into understanding their core message. And I want to just finish with this story because I think it's really great. One of the things that I think people are afraid to do when it comes to understanding their personal brand or really showing up in the world is exactly that. We are afraid to really show up in the world authentically as we are. And you are not alone in feeling that way. I have felt that way. One of the ways that I have tried to hide a little bit, sounds kind of silly, but it's in my clothes. And people that know me are like, Melissa, you do not seem like you struggle with that at all. But the truth is if I could wear the most outrageous clothes every day, I would. And I like dim it down even a little bit, especially here in West Michigan, because it's college t-shirts and sweatshirts, whereas I want to be wearing like, the structured puffy sleeve hot pink silk top with ruffles. I don't know. I mean, really though, with sequins and all. It's just like I'm not made for Michigan. I'm supposed to be over somewhere else, but here I am. And so, but one of the things that happened recently was when I was traveling, I just made this decision. I'm like, especially this year, I'm really going to wear what I want to wear. Like I'm just going to do it. If it's too much for people, it's too much. But this is really who I am. This is my reputation. This is my personal brand. This is me, right? This is who I am. I'm just not going to hide anymore. So I wore this bright yellow sweater and these hot pink pants. And I was walking through the airport and this lady saw me and she invited me to sit down at her table. So I sat down with her. She had these dark chocolate pretzels that I was like, oh, I love those. And she was like, oh, you should have some. So I partook. And then as I'm sitting there, God starts speaking to me for her. And I get a word for her that I shared with her about her life and where she's at with God and where she's at and the things that God has for her. And she starts crying. And we have this amazing conversation. And as we're finishing up and everything, we chatted for like a half an hour. She's crying, I'm tearing up, we're laughing, it's great, talking about the Lord. As we're finishing up, she goes, I had this extra seat and I looked at you and I saw what you were wearing and I thought, I want her to sit with me. And so I invited you to sit down and I'm so glad that I did. And I said to her, I really appreciate that because I feel a little outrageous wearing this, but I love it. And I feel like it's a little much for people. She goes, well, it was perfect for me. And, she was attracted to me because I gave myself permission to fully show up. And I want to share that story with you because you are doing the world a disservice by not fully showing up as your authentic self, whatever that looks like to you. Maybe you don't really care about clothes, but maybe it's your personality, maybe it's, I don't know, how you decorate your house. Maybe it's certain jokes that you think are funny. Like we say it all the time, but just be yourself, but really, truly give yourself permission to just be yourself. And that is what your personal brand is. And that is also Christ in you. It's Christ in you, the hope of glory. How are people going to see God's glory? When they see Christ in you. So be who God's called you to be. And I want to encourage you that if you want that 3 steps to getting clear on your personal brand and understanding your core message, the link is below so you can get it there. And I hope that you have the most wonderful end to 2023. We're going to be talking about so much in 2024. I'm almost at a year of making content weekly on this podcast. So pat on the back for me. But I hope that you found this helpful. And I'm so grateful, so grateful for everybody that tunes in every week. So thank you and be on the lookout for another episode next week.